It was supposed to be simple. I hated him from the moment I met him. Not because he did anything to me, not really. But because he was his brother. Alex was my best friend. We'd been inseparable since high school. Shared everything, secrets, stupid jokes, late-night drives when we couldn't sleep. We were close in that way that made people assume we were dating, even though neither of us ever thought about it like that. But Liam was different. From the first time I saw him, I knew we wouldn't get along. He had this smirk, this confidence that rubbed me the wrong way. Like he knew something I didn't. Like he could see right through me. And maybe he could. We met at a party Alex threw one summer night. The house was packed, music blaring, drinks everywhere. I was sitting on the porch steps, trying to escape the noise, when he showed up. Didn't say hi, just sat down beside me like he belonged there. I barely looked at him. You're Alex's brother, right? He nodded. Yeah, and you're his best friend. There was something in his tone, not quite mocking, not quite friendly. Something in between. I didn't respond. He leaned back, stretching out like he had all the time in the world. So, what's your deal? I frowned. What do you mean? He shrugged. You always look like you're waiting for someone to punch you in the face. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Maybe I am. He studied me for a second, then grinned. You're interesting. I rolled my eyes. Great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. He didn't leave after that. Just stayed there, talking to me like we weren't strangers. Like we weren't supposed to hate each other. And I hated that most of all. Because part of me liked it. And I wasn't ready to admit that yet. I kept telling myself it was just a phase. That I only tolerated him because of Alex. Because they were family, and I didn't want to make things awkward. But the truth was, I started looking forward to seeing him. Every time Alex invited me over, I'd find myself scanning the room for Liam. Watching how he moved, how he talked, how he made everyone around him laugh without even trying. He was annoying, arrogant, too sure of himself, but also funny, smart, weirdly kind when no one was watching. And I hated that I noticed. One afternoon, Alex had to run an errand, leaving me alone with Liam at his house. We were sitting in the kitchen, drinking soda and pretending not to care that we were alone together. He flipped through the channels on the TV, making faces at every commercial. Then he turned to me. So, why do you act like you hate me? I blinked. What? He smirked. Come on, you've been giving me side eye since the day we met. I hesitated. You're just, not my type. He raised an eyebrow. What's your type? I shrugged. Less annoying. He laughed. Well, that's fair. For some reason, that made me smile. We ended up watching a movie that afternoon. Not because either of us suggested it, but because the silence got too heavy and the TV was easier than talking about what we both felt. Halfway through, he reached over and grabbed the remote. His hand brushed mine. Neither of us pulled away. And that was the first time I realized something was starting to change. It wasn't just that I liked being around him, I wanted to be around him. Wanted to hear his voice, wanted to see the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, wanted to know what made him tick. I told myself it was harmless. That this was just friendship. That I was imagining the way his fingers lingered against mine a second longer than necessary. But I wasn't imagining it. He did it on purpose. And I let him, because part of me liked it. Even though I knew I shouldn't. Days passed, then weeks. Every time I saw him, it felt like something was shifting beneath the surface. Like there was this invisible line we were getting closer and closer to crossing, and neither of us was trying to stop it. Sometimes, he'd catch me staring and smirk like he knew exactly what I was thinking. Other times, he'd look at me like he was trying to figure out if I felt the same way he did. And I wasn't sure if I did. Not yet, but I was close. Then came the night that changed everything. We were hanging out again, just the two of us. Alex was out with his girlfriend, and I hadn't felt like going home yet. So we stayed up late, talking about everything and nothing. At some point, the conversation shifted. He looked at me, serious now. Do you ever think about what it would be like, if we weren't related to Alex? I froze. What? He shrugged. Like, if we met somewhere else. Somewhere normal. Do you think we'd still end up here? I swallowed hard. I don't know. He studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, not his usual smirk, but something softer. I think we would. I didn't answer. Because part of me already believed it too. And I didn't know what to do with that. Because I wasn't supposed to feel this way about him. He was my best friend's little brother. And I was falling for him. It started with a look. A moment that stretched too long, filled with something neither of us could ignore. We were sitting on the back porch again, just like we always did when the house felt too small and the silence too loud. The sun was setting, casting everything in warm golds and deep shadows. Alex had gone out earlier with his girlfriend, leaving Liam and me alone for the afternoon. I should have gone inside. Should have found something else to do. But I didn't. Instead, I sat beside him, close enough that our shoulders almost touched, far enough apart that I could pretend it meant nothing. We talked about stupid things, music, movies, the way the neighbor's dog always barked at nothing. Normal stuff, safe stuff. But then he turned to me, and something in his expression shifted. I've been thinking, he said quietly. I glanced at him. That's dangerous. He smirked, but it didn't last. His eyes stayed serious. About us. My stomach twisted. I looked away quickly, pretending to be interested in the tree swaying in the distance. There is no, Liam. He didn't argue. He just watched me for a long moment before speaking again. You keep saying that. Like if you say it enough, it'll become true. I swallowed hard. Because it is true. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, staring down at the wooden floor beneath our feet. Do you remember the first time you realized you liked someone? I blinked, caught off guard by the question. What? When you were younger, he continued, voice soft. Before all this, whatever this is between us. When did you first know you liked someone? I hesitated. I wasn't sure why he was asking, or where this was going, but something in his tone made me answer honestly. I was 15. There was this guy in my math class. He used to sit next to me. We never really talked, but sometimes he'd smile at me, and it would feel like my whole chest lit up. Liam nodded slowly. Did you ever tell him how you felt? I shook my head. No. I was scared, and by the time I figured out what it meant, he moved away. He was quiet for a moment, then he asked, did it go away? What? The feeling. Did it just disappear because you never told him? I thought about it. About how long it took me to understand myself, how many years I spent pretending I didn't want the things I did. How many times I convinced myself that maybe I was just confused. That maybe I didn't really like boys. That maybe it was just a phase. No, I admitted finally. It didn't go away. Liam exhaled, like he was releasing something heavy. Then he turned to me fully, his gaze steady. This isn't going to go away either. I stared at him, heart pounding. You don't get to say things like that. Why not? His voice was quiet, but there was an edge to it now. Why do I have to pretend like I don't feel something just because it's inconvenient? Just because it makes things complicated? I didn't have an answer. He stood suddenly, running a hand through his hair, pacing a few steps before turning back to me. You think I don't know what people will say? That I don't know how messed up this looks from the outside? I do. I know exactly how wrong this seems. But I also know that every time you walk into a room, my heart races. That when you laugh, I forget how to breathe. That when you touch me, even just a little, it feels like something inside me lights up. His voice cracked slightly, and I hated how much it hurt to hear him like this. I stood too, shaking my head. You don't get to do this, Liam. You don't get to make this harder than it already is. He stepped closer. Then stop making it so easy. I froze. He reached out slowly, hesitantly, and placed his hand over mine. His skin was warm, his fingers firm against mine. And I didn't pull away. I'm not asking for forever, he whispered. I'm not asking for anything you can't give. I need you to stop pretending like this doesn't exist. I closed my eyes. Because he was right. I had been pretending. Every time I avoided his gaze, every time I pulled away when he got too close, every time I told myself this was just a phase or some stupid crush that would fade. But it hadn't faded. If anything, it had gotten worse. And now, standing here with his hand over mine, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I wanted him. God help me, I wanted him. So I did the only thing I could think of. I kissed him. It was sudden, desperate, like I was trying to prove something to myself. My hands went to his face, pulling him closer, deepening the kiss before he could react. He gasped softly, surprised, but didn't pull away. Instead, he kissed me back, slow and careful, like he was afraid I might break. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. I rested my forehead against his, eyes still closed. This is a mistake. He didn't deny it. He just whispered, maybe. But it's our mistake. And somehow, that made it worse. Because I knew, in that moment, that this wasn't going to be the last time. This was only the beginning. That night, everything changed. It started with silence. The kind that settled over the house like a blanket, thick and heavy, pressing down on every corner. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the kiss over and over again in my head. My lips still tingled from where his had touched mine, soft but sure, like he'd been waiting for that moment longer than I realized. I told myself it was a mistake. A stupid, reckless mistake that I should already be regretting. But instead of guilt or fear, all I felt was this strange, twisting ache in my chest, like something inside me had shifted and there was no going back. I wasn't surprised when I heard a knock on my door. Soft, almost hesitant. I sat up slowly, heart pounding as I called out, come in. The door opened just enough for Liam to slip inside. He didn't turn on the light. Just stood there in the dim glow of the hallway, his eyes searching mine. I couldn't sleep, he said quietly. I didn't ask why he came here. I already knew. Instead, I moved over, making space for him on the bed. He hesitated only for a second before stepping forward and sitting beside me. We didn't speak right away, just sat there, close enough that our shoulders brushed, far enough apart that we could pretend this wasn't leading somewhere dangerous. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Did you mean it? I looked at him. Mean what? His gaze met mine. When you kissed me, did you mean it? I swallowed hard. Does it matter? It does to me. I turned away, staring at the window where moonlight spilled across the floor. Liam, we can't do this. Why not? His voice was quiet, but firm. You want this too. I know you do. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. That this was nothing more than a stupid impulse, a moment of weakness. But the truth was, I did want him. And the more I tried to deny it, the stronger it got. So instead of answering, I did the only thing I could think of. I kissed him again. This time, there was no hesitation. No pretending it was an accident. I pulled him closer, deepening the kiss, letting my fingers curl into the fabric of his shirt. He gasped softly against my mouth, surprised but eager, leaning into me like he'd been waiting for permission. His hands found my face, cupping my jaw gently as he kissed me back, slow and deliberate. There was something careful about the way he touched me, like he was afraid I might disappear if he held on too tightly. I didn't care. I needed more. I shifted closer, angling my head so I could taste him better, and he let out a quiet breath that sent a shiver down my spine. God, he tasted good, minty and warm, like he'd just brushed his teeth before coming in here. We broke apart only long enough to breathe, both of us panting slightly, foreheads pressed together. Say it, he whispered. Tell me you want this. I closed my eyes. I shouldn't, but you do. I nodded, barely even realizing I'd done it until he kissed me again, harder this time. More desperate. And I let him push me back onto the bed, let him hover over me, his body heat seeping through the thin fabric of our clothes. His hands were everywhere, my face, my neck, my arms, like he was trying to memorize every part of me. I tangled my fingers in his hair, pulling him closer, kissing him like I was trying to drown in him. Like if I held on tight enough, maybe I wouldn't have to think about what this meant tomorrow. But even as we kissed, even as my body responded to his touch, a small voice in the back of my mind kept whispering that this was wrong. He was 17, my best friend's little brother. And I was older, supposed to know better. But none of that mattered in this moment. Because I wanted him. God help me, I wanted him. And I couldn't stop. His lips moved from mine, trailing kisses along my jawline, then down my neck. I let out a quiet moan, arching into his touch without meaning to. He paused, lips hovering just above my skin, breathing heavily. You feel so good, he murmured. I shivered at the sound of his voice, low and rough with something I hadn't heard from him before. Desire, need, hunger. I reached for him again, pulling him back up so I could kiss him once more, deeper this time. Our tongues met, slow and wet, and I felt a rush of heat coil in my stomach. I wanted more. I wanted everything asterisk. But just as I was about to pull his shirt over his head, he suddenly stopped. He pulled back slightly, eyes searching mine. Are you sure about this? I hesitated. Was I? No, not really. But I couldn't stop now. So I nodded, barely even convincing myself. Yeah. He studied me for a moment longer, then leaned in and kissed me again, slower this time. More careful, like he knew how fragile this moment was. We took our time, peeling off layers of clothing one by one, hands trembling slightly with nerves and anticipation. When his bare skin finally pressed against mine, I felt a jolt go through me, sharp and electric. He was warm, so warm. I ran my hands down his back, feeling the muscles shift beneath my fingertips, and he let out a soft sigh against my neck. I don't remember exactly when things escalated. One minute we were just kissing, the next we were tangled together, bodies flush against each other, breath mingling in the darkness. He kissed me again, slow and deep, and I wrapped my arms around him, holding him close. I didn't want this to end. I didn't want to wake up tomorrow and pretend it never happened. But even as I held him, even as I kissed him like I meant it, I knew one thing for certain. This was only going to get harder. And I had no idea how I was going to explain it to Alex. The morning after, I woke up tangled in the sheets, heart still racing from the echoes of what had happened between us. The room was quiet except for the soft sound of Liam's breathing beside me. He was still asleep, lying on his side, one arm draped lazily over my chest, the other tucked beneath his pillow. His face was relaxed in a way I hadn't seen before, peaceful, almost innocent. I stared at him for a long time, trying to make sense of everything. Of how we got here. Of how this became real. Because it was real now. No more pretending, no more excuses. We had crossed the line, and there was no going back. I shifted slightly, careful not to wake him, but he stirred anyway. His eyes fluttered open slowly, meeting mine with that same sleepy warmth that made my chest tighten. Morning, he mumbled, voice rough with sleep. I swallowed hard. Hey, he smiled faintly, then seemed to remember exactly where he was, or maybe more importantly, why he was here. His expression shifted, something cautious creeping into his gaze. You regret it, he said quietly. I shook my head. No. His brow furrowed. Then why do you look like you're about to run away? I didn't answer right away. Because he was right. I wanted to run. Wanted to disappear before Alex came home, before anyone noticed what had changed between us. But I couldn't. Not anymore. Instead, I reached out and brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, letting my fingers linger against his skin longer than necessary. I don't regret it, I said softly. I don't know what this means now. Liam exhaled, rolling onto his back and staring up at the ceiling. It means we can't pretend anymore. I nodded slowly. Yeah. He turned his head to look at me again. Do you want to? I hesitated. Want to what? Pretend, he clarified. Do you want to go back to acting like nothing happened? I wanted to lie. Wanted to say yes, that we should forget this ever happened, that we could both move on and pretend it was just a stupid mistake. But I couldn't, because the truth was, I didn't want to forget. I didn't want to go back. I wanted to keep this, however messy, however complicated it was. So I looked at him and said, no. I don't want to pretend. A slow smile spread across his lips. Not smug, not arrogant, just relieved. And then he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't urgent like last night. It was slower, softer, like he was trying to memorize every part of me all over again. And I let him. I kissed him back, threading my fingers through his hair, holding him close like I was afraid he might disappear if I let go. But even as we kissed, even as my body responded to his touch, I couldn't ignore the weight settling in my chest. Alex. What would he think? What would he say? Would he hate me? Would he hate us? I pulled away first, resting my forehead against his. We need to talk about this. Liam sighed, already knowing what I meant. Yeah, we can't keep this a secret forever, I whispered. Eventually, he's going to find out. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, maybe he already knows. I frowned. What do you mean? He shrugged. I don't know. He's been different lately. Like he senses something's off. I swallowed hard. You think he suspects? Liam hesitated. I think he doesn't want to believe it. That made my stomach twist. Because if Alex suspected, that meant he was already hurting. And we hadn't even told him yet. I sat up slowly, pulling the sheet around my waist. We have to tell him. Liam blinked. Now. I nodded. Before someone else does. Before he finds out the wrong way. He sat up too, running a hand through his hair. Are you sure? I wasn't. Not really. But I knew one thing for certain, keeping this hidden wasn't protecting anyone. Least of all Alex. So I met Liam's gaze and said, yeah. We tell him today. He studied me for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. Okay. And just like that, the decision was made. There was no turning back now. Later that afternoon, we found ourselves sitting on the couch, waiting for Alex to come home. Neither of us spoke much. Just sat there, close enough that our knees were touching, far enough apart that it wouldn't be obvious to anyone walking in. When Alex finally walked through the door, laughing and talking with his girlfriend, neither of us moved. She waved at us before heading upstairs, leaving him alone in the living room. He dropped his keys on the table, grinning. Hey, guys, what's up? I glanced at Liam. He nodded. I took a deep breath. We need to talk. Alex's smile faltered slightly. Okay. I gestured for him to sit down. He did, looking between us like he already knew something was wrong. What's going on? He asked. I looked at Liam again, silently asking him to start. He cleared his throat. There's something we need to tell you. Alex frowned. Is everything okay? Liam hesitated, then said, I don't know how to say this without making it worse. Alex's eyes narrowed. Just say it. I finally spoke. It's about us. He looked at me. What about you two? I swallowed hard. About me and Liam. His expression changed instantly. Not anger, not shock, more like disbelief, like he wasn't sure he'd heard me right. What are you saying? He asked slowly. Liam took a deep breath. We're together. Silence. Heavy, thick, suffocating. Alex just stared at us. Then he laughed, short, bitter. You're joking, right? I shook my head. We're not. His jaw tightened. You're telling me that the two people I trust the most, my best friend and my own brother, are dating behind my back. I flinched. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? His voice was rising now. How long has this been going on? I hesitated. A few weeks. He let out a sharp breath, shaking his head. Unbelievable. Liam leaned forward. Alex, please. No. Alex stood up suddenly. Don't. Please. Me. You lied to me. I stood too. We didn't plan for this to happen. He turned to me, eyes blazing. Then why did it? I didn't have an answer. Because there wasn't one. He stared at us for a long moment, then shook his head again. I can't do this right now. And with that, he walked out, leaving me and Liam alone again. And this time, I wasn't sure if he'd ever come back. The house felt colder after that. Not because of the weather, it was still summer, still warm enough that the air outside carried the scent of cut grass and blooming flowers. But inside, everything had changed. The laughter was gone, the easy conversations, the way Alex used to drag me into late-night gaming sessions or toss a football at my head just for fun. That version of our lives didn't exist anymore, and neither did I. I walked around like a ghost, moving through the motions, pretending I could keep going like this. Like nothing had broken, like I hadn't ruined everything. But I had, and there was no fixing it. Alex barely spoke to either of us now. When he was home, he stayed in his room with the door locked. When he wasn't, his parents noticed. They asked questions we couldn't answer. They tried to make things better, but how do you explain something like this? How do you tell someone that their son's best friend fell for their other son? That it wasn't planned, that it wasn't supposed to happen, that I never meant for any of it. But I did, and I hated myself for it. Liam didn't try to talk to his brother again. He stopped knocking on the door, stopped calling his name, and when Alex finally came out one morning, looking thinner than before, eyes shadowed like he hadn't slept in days, Liam didn't say a word. Just watched him from across the kitchen table, jaw tight, hands curled into fists beneath the surface. No one said anything. It was too heavy, too broken, and I knew, deep down, that I couldn't stay here anymore. This house, these people, they weren't mine. Not really. I'd been a guest, a visitor, someone who was supposed to leave after 2 weeks, not someone who ended up tearing a family apart. So I packed my things. Quietly, carefully, like if I made too much noise, someone might stop me. But no one did. On the morning I left, I said goodbye to everyone except Alex. His parents hugged me, told me I was always welcome back. His sister gave me a small smile and whispered, take care of yourself. I nodded, throat tight. Then I turned to Liam. He stood by the car, arms crossed over his chest, face unreadable. He didn't cry, didn't yell, just looked at me like he was trying to memorize every part of me before I disappeared. I hesitated. You know I have to go. He nodded once. Yeah, I don't think your brother will ever forgive me. He swallowed hard. Maybe not. I looked away. Then I can't stay. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body even though he didn't touch me. Will I see you again? He asked quietly. I didn't know what to say. Because I wanted to believe I would. Wanted to believe that one day, things might be different. That maybe, years from now, when the pain had faded and the anger had softened, we could meet again without this weight between us. But I didn't believe it. Not really. So I just looked at him and said the only thing I could. I don't know. He nodded again, slower this time. Then he reached out and grabbed my hand, just for a second. A brief, desperate touch before he let go. I'll wait, he said. I didn't believe him either. But I wanted to. I didn't look back as I pulled out of the driveway. Didn't turn around to see if he was watching me leave. I just drove, and kept driving until the town was behind me, until the house was nothing more than a memory I wasn't ready to face. Back home, life tried to return to normal. My mom asked how my trip was. I told her it was fine. Alex's parents sent me a message a few days later, saying they hoped I was doing well. I replied politely, thanked them for having me. Liam didn't text me, didn't call, didn't try to reach out at all. And I hated how much that hurt. I threw myself into work, into routine, anything to keep my mind off of him. Off of everything asterisk. I went out with friends, pretended to laugh at jokes, smiled when people asked how I was doing. But I wasn't okay. I wasn't even close. At night, I lay awake thinking about him. About the way he kissed me. The way he held me. The way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world who mattered. I thought about Alex too. About how much I missed him. About how much I missed this asterisk. Our friendship. Our stupid jokes. The way he always had my back, no matter what. And I hated myself for losing that. For losing both of them. A week passed. Then 2. Then a month. Still, no message from Liam. Still, no sign that he was waiting. And slowly, piece by piece, I convinced myself that he wasn't. That whatever this was between us, it had ended the moment I got into that car. And I was alone again. Just like I deserved to be. Time passed. It always does, whether you're ready for it or not. At first, I kept waiting, not for Alex to forgive me, because I knew that wasn't something I could expect. But for some kind of closure. Some sign that things weren't as broken as they felt. That maybe, one day, everything would make sense again. But it didn't. Months turned into a year. Then 2. I moved on with my life the best I could. Got a job, made new friends, tried dating, but nothing ever stuck. Every time someone came close, I found myself comparing them to him. To Liam. To the way he looked at me like I mattered. To the way he kissed me like he never wanted to let go. To the way he made me feel like I was allowed to want someone, even when I thought I didn't deserve to. I told myself I was over it. Told myself I had to be. But I wasn't. Not really. And then, out of nowhere, I got a message. It was from him. Just a simple text, no warning, no explanation. Just his name flashing across my screen in those 3 words. Hey, I'm sorry. Asterisk. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply right away. Just held my phone in my hand, heart pounding like I was 17 again and trying to figure out what any of this meant. Eventually, I typed back, for what? Asterisk. He responded almost instantly. For taking so long to say this. For making you leave. For letting you think I didn't care. Asterisk. I swallowed hard, reading the words over and over, trying to find meaning in them beyond what was written. Then came the next message. I still love you. Asterisk. That was all. Just 4 words. But they hit me harder than anything else ever had. Because part of me had never stopped loving him either. We started talking again after that. Slowly at first. Short messages. Random thoughts. Memories we both pretended we'd forgotten. He told me about college, about how he was studying something practical now, business, I think. Something his parents approved of. He said he still played basketball sometimes, just for fun. Said he missed the lake behind their house. Missed sitting on the porch steps with me, watching the sunset. Missed me asterisk. I didn't know what to do with that information. So I asked him the question I'd been carrying around for years. Why now? Asterisk. He took longer to answer this time. When he finally did, his response was quiet, honest. Because I needed to stop pretending it didn't happen. Needed to stop pretending I didn't miss you every single day. Asterisk. I read it over and over again, trying to convince myself it was real. That this wasn't some cruel dream or crueler memory. And slowly, piece by piece, I realized something. This wasn't just nostalgia. This wasn't just regret. This was real. Still real. Even after everything. Even after Alex. Even after the silence. Even after the pain. Liam still loved me. And I still loved him. A few weeks later, we met up. Not in his hometown. Not where it all began. But in a city neither of us had any ties to. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere safe. I saw him before he saw me. Standing near the cafe. Window, hands in his pockets, hair slightly shorter than I remembered, shoulders broader. He looked older. More sure of himself. More like a man than the boy I left behind. He looked up, caught sight of me, and smiled. It was small, hesitant. But it was there. I walked over, heart hammering. He stood up. Neither of us spoke at first. Then he pulled me into a hug. It was slow, careful. Like he was afraid I might break. Or disappear. But I didn't. I stayed. I held on to him. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. We talked for hours after that. About everything. About the past. About what happened with Alex. About how much we missed each other. About how stupid we'd both been. I should have fought harder, he admitted quietly. To keep you. I shook my head. You couldn't have. I wouldn't have let you. He gave a small, bitter laugh. Yeah, I know. There was a pause before he looked at me again. Do you think we can try again? I studied him for a long moment. At 25, he was different. Older. Wiser. And I was too. We weren't the same people who had fallen into something we didn't understand. We weren't the same boys who had gotten lost in each other without thinking about the consequences. But maybe now, we could be something more. Maybe now, we could get it right. So I reached out, took his hand in mine, and said, I think we already are. Time passed. It always does, whether you're ready for it or not. At first, I kept waiting, not for Alex to forgive me, because I knew that wasn't something I could expect. But for some kind of closure. Some sign that things weren't as broken as they felt. That maybe, one day, everything would make sense again. But it didn't. Months turned into a year. Then 2. I moved on with my life the best I could. Got a job, made new friends, tried dating, but nothing ever stuck. Every time someone came close, I found myself comparing them to him. To Liam. To the way he looked at me like I mattered. To the way he kissed me like he never wanted to let go. To the way he made me feel like I was allowed to want someone, even when I thought I didn't deserve to. I told myself I was over it. Told myself I had to be. But I wasn't. Not really. And then, out of nowhere, I got a message. It was from him. Just a simple text, no warning, no explanation. Just his name flashing across my screen in those 3 words. Hey, I'm sorry. Asterisk. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply right away. Just held my phone in my hand, heart pounding like I was 17 again and trying to figure out what any of this meant. Eventually, I typed back, for what? Asterisk. He responded almost instantly. For taking so long to say this. For making you leave. For letting you think I didn't care. Asterisk. I swallowed hard, reading the words over and over, trying to find meaning in them beyond what was written. Then came the next message. I still love you. Asterisk. That was all. Just 4 words. But they hit me harder than anything else ever had. Because part of me had never stopped loving him either. We started talking again after that. Slowly at first. Short messages. Random thoughts. Memories we both pretended we'd forgotten. He told me about college, about how he was studying something practical now, business, I think. Something his parents approved of. He said he still played basketball sometimes, just for fun. Said he missed the lake behind their house. Missed sitting on the porch steps with me, watching the sunset. Missed me asterisk. I didn't know what to do with that information. So I asked him the question I'd been carrying around for years. Why now? Asterisk. He took longer to answer this time. When he finally did, his response was quiet, honest. Because I needed to stop pretending it didn't happen. Needed to stop pretending I didn't miss you every single day. Asterisk. I read it over and over again, trying to convince myself it was real. That this wasn't some cruel dream or crueler memory. And slowly, piece by piece, I realized something. This wasn't just nostalgia. This wasn't just regret. This was real. Still real. Even after everything. Even after Alex. Even after the silence. Even after the pain. Liam still loved me. And I still loved him. A few weeks later, we met up. Not in his hometown. Not where it all began. But in a city neither of us had any ties to. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere safe. I saw him before he saw me. Standing near the cafe window, hands in his pockets, hair slightly shorter than I remembered, shoulders broader. He looked older. More sure of himself. More like a man than the boy I left behind. He looked up, caught sight of me, and smiled. It was small, hesitant. But it was there. I walked over, heart hammering. He stood up. Neither of us spoke at first. Then he pulled me into a hug. It was slow, careful. Like he was afraid I might break. Or disappear. But I didn't. I stayed. I held on to him. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. We talked for hours after that. About everything. About the past. About what happened with Alex. About how much we missed each other. About how stupid we'd both been. I should have fought harder, he admitted quietly. To keep you. I shook my head. You couldn't have. I wouldn't have let you. He gave a small, bitter laugh. Yeah, I know. There was a pause before he looked at me again. Do you think we can try again? I studied him for a long moment. At 25, he was different. Older. Wiser. And I was too. We weren't the same people who had fallen into something we didn't understand. We weren't the same boys who had gotten lost in each other without thinking about the consequences. But maybe now, we could be something more. Maybe now, we could get it right. So I reached out, took his hand in mine, and said, I think we already are. Years later, I still think about that day. About the way he looked at me when I walked into that cafe. About the way he held my hand like he never wanted to let go again. About the way we sat there for hours, talking like no time had passed at all. Because in a way, it hadn't. The feelings were still there. The memories, the love, all of it. We spent months rebuilding what we had lost. Talking late into the night, laughing over old stories, learning how to be together without hiding. Without guilt, without fear, and eventually, we found our way back to each other. Not perfectly, not without scars, but honestly, and that made all the difference. If you've ever loved someone you shouldn't have, if you've ever felt that pull, that ache, that impossible longing for someone who was just out of reach, then you understand. Love doesn't always make sense. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it hurts, sometimes it takes years to find its way back to you. But when it does, it's worth every second. If you like this story, hit that like button. Leave a comment below, have you ever loved someone you couldn't have? And don't forget to subscribe for more faceless LGBTQ+ stories like this one. Thank you for watching. Until next time.